Hello and welcome. It's Jim and Dom again. 1 week later.
Hello.
As we said, we had so much fun doing this last time. We decided to do it again. And what else were we doing really, except making hubs?
Working.
You know. Um, yeah. So just want to welcome everybody to our stream today on the mixed. What are we called? Mixed reality, Mozilla
Mozilla
Realities
Reality. Yeah.
channel on Twitch. And Dom, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Dom. I'm an engineer on the Hubs team. That's me.
There you go. I'm Jim. I'm an artist on the Hubs team. And today we're going to be talking more, sort of a continuation of last week's stuff. We were showing, what did we show last week? We showed a bunch of stuff about light baking and other things, but more importantly, we were talking about the Hubs Blender exporter and how it can be used in Blender. And it's basically an add on that Dom here has spent a bunch of time making cool, and it continues to improve. So keep checking back at the improvements that come along. Let's see. I'm gonna pop over so that we can see not my stream manager. Where are we going? Where are we going? There it is. The Hubs Blender exporter. I have the link up at the top of the page there the whole time. You can check it out. But basically, yeah, we talked about this last week. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on it, but basically, there's a bunch of things that you can add to your objects and things in Blender that will export when you go to export a GLB, and automatically Hubs will recognize those things. You don't have to do any like text editing or anything like that, and your stuff will work in Hubs. So today, actually, what we're going to focus on, because we've had a lot of people ask about this, is setting up an avatar. And there's a bunch of things you can do with Hubs. You can just use one of the avatars that we provide you out of the box, or find one that maybe another community member made by searching for it. But a lot of times people want to express themselves in different ways, and maybe they don't like the look of the robot, or maybe they don't like the humanoid ones, or they can't seem to find exactly what they want. And depending on your use case, whether it's for work or it's for just like a fun gathering, or maybe it's themed around something, you might want to find a model or make your own model. And so uh, I'm going to do that today. Now today the plan is to grab a model from Sketchfab, which can be done pretty easily if you go to sketchfab.com and look for models that are both not too crazy in their complexity, but also, more importantly, look for ones that are Creative Commons licensed. If you're doing it this way, I mean, you're not really forced to find those things. Like, we don't filter those out for you or anything, but it's easy enough to just go into Sketchfab and start doing a search. And when I did a search trying to come up with ideas for this stream, I was like, let me just search for like the word cute, and then I and then I started going through, and it was like pretty overwhelming. But if you uh, maybe don't show restricted content, because we don't want to see that on here. But we want to turn on like things that are downloadable, so that we're sure that we can actually get them. And I found a lot of really cool stuff on here, like this little cute fox and some other things. And I almost used those, and then I stumbled upon my criteria were kind of like, I don't really want to get into like rigging hands and all kinds of
Right.
stuff. But I ended up finding this cute like crocodile that I thought was really cool, and I have it on this other page here. So I found this guy, and it was based on some cartoon or something that somebody
Love
had
it.
seen. There's a link to it below. This here's the person's page who made it. I'll give them some shout out love here. And also, sometimes if you find a model you like, it's worth
Yeah, they
looking.
have some other cool stuff
Yeah,
too.
look at their other stuff, because you might be like, oh, that's awesome. I want to follow that person. They make other cool stuff. Oh, this little whale's cute. Anyway, the crocodile's pretty cool, and I did a test with it and could actually make it work. And the one of the things that was really nice about this guy or girl, I don't know what it is, uh, it was only 3,500 triangles. It was
Hmm.
3.5, and when I looked at the model information, it the download side's only a meg, and that's a good sign. And it only has one texture and one material, which is
Yeah,
like,
the materials are really important to look at because you could see a model that looks really simple, and you're like, oh, it's just made of boxes or whatever, and then actually it has like 300 separate objects and a
oh
bunch of
yeah,
different materials.
yeah. And if you look at models that have my sort of rule generally is if I go into Sketchfab and I find something that looks cool, um, but so much of the look of the model depends on its materials. Like
Right.
maybe it's really cute, but it also has like this complex glass shader or some kind of like sophisticated rendering thing
Yeah,
they're
yeah. In
doing.
Sketchfab, you can end up with things where they're using a custom shader or something like that, and that's not really supported in hubs right now. A lot of the stuff on Sketchfab is just PBR, and so it's going to work fine in hubs, and even stuff that looks like, oh, it's like doing an outline shader or something like that. Sometimes they're just doing kind of creative, things to get that to work, and so it actually still will work in hubs, but you just have to be careful because like Sketchfab
There's a coffee
does
bot.
custom shaders and also post processing too that we don't do in hubs.
Yeah, and so like Dom said, we do support PBR materials like these, like
Hmm.
with the roughness and the metalness and normal maps and all that. Um, and that's fine. Today, though, I was trying to keep it simple. And like this model's like 17,000 triangles, which is pretty heavy. But look at the download size. It's 87 megs because it's made of 23 different materials,
Right.
101 textures. That's not
Yeah. I mean,
impossible.
even if it does work too, I mean, just you have to, people are going to have to download it, and so there's a bunch, depending on if they're on a mobile connection or something like that. And then also we support PBR, but only on high quality mode or desktop mode. So if you're on like a VR headset, like a mobile VR headset like the Quest or a phone, it's going to be unlit. And we're working on a medium quality mode, which actually should be going out pretty soon, I
Oh,
think.
that's right. That's
Um,
right.
that will have some lighting, but still you're not going to get the full PBR thing. So yeah, if it really relies on, if it's going to look really weird, if it's not super shiny or something like that, then you might need to rethink it. But
Yeah. The other thing is I mentioned hands before, and like while we do support full hand articulation
mhm.
stuff, we don't have like elbows and arms and stuff for a bunch of reasons that we could talk about for a long time. But um, just in the case of simplifying things, it's probably best to just try to find an avatar or a model that uh, where the hands are less important. I didn't pick one that didn't have hands. In fact, this has arms and
Mhm.
hands. I guess it's a crocodile, so they're legs. I don't know, technically. Um, but they're kind of down at the sides, and that's kind of like his pose. So I thought
And
it,
you can
you know,
you can adapt them too, like the way we've seen people do something like this. And I don't know if you're planning on doing this on stream, but
hmm
probably not. But like you cut off the hands at the wrists or something like that, and then you kind of create these glove things that sort of represent the hands, and then you get rid of the arms. It's like a style, it's an art style thing, and it's going to work better for some avatars than others. But we've seen people be able to do that and have like pretty nice avatars without having arms.
yeah,
But it really depends on what you're trying to create, right? Like you can just have the arms down at the sides, and then you don't have hands. And if you don't care about people who are using VR devices using this avatar, then you don't really have to worry about hands at all, right? So it's if you're creating this for yourself and you don't have a VR headset, then don't worry about hands.
yeah. We had somebody made a really cool one once early on in the beginning of Hubs, where it was like I don't know if they made it themselves or pulled it off of here, but it was like a little bear, and he was floating because he had his arms up in the air and he was holding
Mhm.
balloons. And
Oh
I thought
yeah,
that
yeah,
was a
yeah.
really clever way to avoid having to do hands because he
Yeah.
had to hang on to the balloons. So like I don't know, you can be creative and try to come up with something like that. But in this case, I think this will work fine. I always, just in case, I inspect the model before I move on and like look at the wireframe and see how crazy it is. This is really nicely
Mm.
made. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of an ideal scenario where it's really simple. The most complex thing on here are the eyes. And I end up changing this because
Oh, yeah, that could definitely be simplified a bit,
also
probably.
also the white part of the eyes on this is actually transparent,
Huh.
and those dots of the eyes,
Oh,
the
or on like
pupils are
inside of it.
inside, and the
Oh,
normals are
interesting.
flipped on these, so you can see inside. So I kind of wanted to just avoid any kind of transparency stuff. So you'll see when I go about it, I'm going to actually end up pulling these pupils further out. The eyebrows that are floating are fine. but you could get rid of those too if you wanted. This happens to actually have the inside of the mouth, which is awesome because then later I'll
Oh,
show you
perfect.
you
Yeah.
can like make the mouth open and close and stuff. But in terms of this, it's this one texture. It's really, really simple. If you switch to the material channel and then turn on 2D or 3D plus 2D, you can actually see the texture here. Um, and as you move your mouse around, it actually shows you what part of the texture you're looking at on the
Oh, that's
model,
cool.
which is nice. Sketchfab, I got to give a shout
The
out to
viewer is very
them.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've done a lot of work making this cool, and so yeah, it's pretty awesome. But this looks great. I go ahead and I hit download, and when it asks you for like what format you want to get, um, the best case scenario is like there's a Blender file here already. In this case, I don't know what they made it with. I think it says, I don't know. I don't think it says what they made it in. But when I go to download, usually what I'll choose is the auto-converted GLTF format.
Mhm.
And one of the advantages of doing that is that the file will already have its materials set up in a way that GLTF
That makes
understands.
sense.
And you might still have to do a little bit of work to make it a little more streamlined, but this is great. I'm going to go ahead and save this crocodile zip. They come in as zip files, and then all you need to do is extract that zip, which you probably won't see on the stream right now, but I'm just going to extract it to a folder.
Yeah, and just
Um,
because Hubs only supports GLTS or GLBs doesn't mean your source asset has to be a GLTF or GLB. But like Jim said, the Blender importer half of the Blender GLTF exporter is going to just kind of set things up easier if you're starting with a GLB. But you can start with an FBX or any other file format that Blender can import.
exactly. Well, I'm going to pop over to Blender now and bring that model in. Now you can't just open it; you have to do an import. So I'm going to get rid of the old cube. Bye cube, and go in and choose import GLTF 2.0 there. You'll see it says GLB also next to it. Can you see this screen? I don't know if you can see
Yep.
this screen. Cool, excellent. And now I'm going to go to my downloads and I'm going to find that crocodile folder. And usually it's called scene.gltf, like the way Sketchfab auto names it. Because Sketchfab actually auto generates those GLTF files for you, which is pretty sweet. So if I bring this in, there he is. Um, don't worry if you don't see textures because you're not in texture mode yet. I'm going to switch over to the viewport shading mode where I can see it. And there he is.
There you
Now,
go.
when these come in, they often have a bunch of extra stuff that you don't really need. I'll show you. In the case of this, there's these like a bunch of empty nodes that are like these little helper things. Like for some reason, this guy's pivot point is under his 1 foot instead of in the middle. These are things I like to fix first.
Yeah, I imagine like a lot of this could be artifacts of just Blender's automatic conversion. I mean, they basically have this pipeline set up where any asset you upload to Sketchfab can they'll automatically generate a GLTF for, which is really awesome. And that's the reason we can even do Sketchfab importing in Hubs because Sketchfab does this whole process on the back end, but it's automated. It's not perfect.
Yeah,
So
and
the thing you're going to get out the other end
it's
isn't.
really hard, and we know from Hub's experience, it's really hard to make a one size fits all
Yeah.
uh, tooling for like models that any user could have made. So if I look over in the hierarchy here, it starts off with this root node, and then there's another root node, and then a long string of garbage. I don't know what that is, and then another root node. So basically, I'm looking for the one that's just wow. There's
Like,
so
where's
many.
the actual
There's the
model?
actual model. It looks like a little inverted orangish triangle, and then the mesh underneath that. So all I really care about is that one. All this extra garbage above it, um, I can just get rid of. Now, the way that I do it, though, because if I start deleting these nodes, these actually often have transform information
Right.
on them about where they're located in space. And if
Right.
I
So
start
things are going to
deleting
start
them, this
moving.
model might resize or flip or turn or whatever.
Hmm.
So what I do in Blender is find the model node that I'm looking for and select it over here. And then what I do is go to Object. I'll show you in the menu first, then I'll show you the shortcut. I go to Object, Parent, and then there's this thing called Clear and Keep Transformation. So it'll clear all the parenting information off of this thing,
Uh,
but it'll keep it visually where it is. and that's awesome. And the
That's a
shortcut
super
for that,
useful tool.
yeah, the shortcut is Alt P, and then you'll get a little pop-up menu where you can choose that. So keep clear and keep transformation. Boom. There. You'll see over in the hierarchy it popped out of all this nonsense.
Okay.
And now you're safe to just delete all that. You can either like select everything or right click and say select hierarchy and then
Oh,
right.
that's a very useful little thing to know that exists there.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
know
use
about
that all
that.
the time. So
Yeah.
so that's cool. Now the one other problem I have is that its pivot point is under its right foot here instead of
Hmm.
centered in the viewport. So what I do is make sure that your 3D cursor is at the origin, and the quick way to do that is to hit Shift S. You get the little pop-up menu, and then you can hit the number 1 or this one called cursor to world origin. So it's like Shift S1 will get it there. So if your cursor ended up accidentally, maybe you're a new Blender user and you're not used to like right clicking. If you're that, like me, I'm a right click select guy. Sorry, left clickers. I learned it that way. So anyway, Shift S1 and then it'll go to the middle. And then I go up to the object menu and I choose set origin. Make sure that the crocodile selected. Object set origin, and then I can choose origin to 3D cursor. And uh, that'll put now the little origin of this model has been moved to the center.
And so now that object's transform should just be zeroed out, basically, right?
That should be the case. Let's open up the menu on the side here. You can hit N and
I guess it
go
might
to
have scale
item.
still applied to it,
It's
but
still, no, actually, it doesn't have any scale applied. This is great,
okay.
except that it's enormous. By the way, each one of these grid squares is a meter, so this is like
Yeah.
Godzilla, and we wanted to make one that would like fit in with the rest of the avatar. So I showed this last week. If you're not sure about the size of an avatar, what I always do, just as a quick thing, is I do Shift A and I add a cylinder mesh, and in the options I set its depth to about 1.6, which is like kind of the average avatar height, and then I set the radius to about zero point 0.2. It's about how thick you are, and then I move it up a bit in edit mode with tab, and then I go GZ zero point 0.8, and then I'll put it up to about what an avatar size is. So you can see how big this guy is. He's
Yeah. So we
really
can just
big.
scale
Um,
them down.
so of course you can select it and scale it. And now that the pivot is down there, that is a little simpler.
Hmm.
But it's actually kind of a problem when you do that because your scale is now going to be at a strange number and you'd have to reset it. So what I do is I do that in edit mode. I go
Right.
to tab, hit A to select everything, and then I go to scale. Now it's not scaling down at the bottom there because when you scale the verts, it doesn't respect that. So you have to change your pivot thing up here to 3D cursor.
And your 3D cursor is still at the origin, so it's
Yeah, I
still
mean,
going to
there's other
scale down.
ones you can pick, like the
Hmm.
active element, blah, 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 but I'm just going to do that, and now he'll go down. Now, the weird thing about this guy is he's so round. I mean, he's so, like, wide.
Hmm.
So if I made him the height of a normal avatar, he might look really, really thick compared to other people, and that might be cool.
I mean,
Yeah,
he's a thick boy. It's fine.
it's true. It's true. But you could also play around with size and say like, well, maybe I'll make them smaller, but it'll like float in
Hmm.
the air or whatever. Um,
Yeah, the only thing I would want to consider here is like if you're making this for use with VR headsets, the person's actual height is going to affect where the head is, and so if you make it too small, they're going to be kind of floating above the ground. If you make it too short or too tall, they're going to be like through the ground, depending on the person's actual height. Um, so we don't have any way right now to like scale the avatars to the user's real height or anything like that. So you kind of need to pick avatars that are around your real height if you're going to use them in VR. If you're using them in 2D mode or with a not a VR headset, then they're always going to snap to I think the 1.7 meters there. So um,
exactly. Yeah, I think and the other thing is too. I mean, you can use creative license. Like if you decided, oh, I actually want to scale him, but like
mhm,
I want him skinny, or like you could do that. I really like the design of this, so I'm going to leave it
yeah,
as is, and
I think
I
that's
think
cool.
that'll be fine. Now that I have a sense of his scale and everything. By the way, if you did not scale it that way, if you just scaled it using scale and not in edit mode, um, that's okay too. Like me, I'll scale them a little bit
Yeah, it'll
more.
it'll work. I think it's definitely better if you apply it to the vertices directly,
Yeah.
so
But
that the object has a flat scale.
what I was going to say to reset this scale, all you have to do is select it and hit Control A, and then
That'll apply it to the
apply. You
vertices.
can say apply scale or all transforms or whatever. I'm going to hit scale. Boom. Another thing to be aware of is that when you create an avatar, um, and Blender is a Z up app. So the Z direction is up and down. You want to make sure that your avatar is facing, like, if you're staring at your avatar from the front like this, like looking at your avatar, then the Y direction, the positive Y direction, should be going away from you. In other words, the
Hmm.
avatar should be looking down the negative Y axis, and you can see that up here. Um, Positive is the one with the line, and the negative one is
So
the
is
one
there
with
is
just
there
a
a
dot.
view you can view from to like confirm that? Like you can,
I mean, this
Blender has
helper up
the
top
front
here
view or whatever.
tells
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
but I mean, you can always just hit the negative Y thing, and he should be facing you.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was
Otherwise,
asking.
he's going to be like that way or something. So,
Right. So if you hit negative Y, that'll confirm that
mm-hmm,
it's
just
facing the right
like
direction.
click on it, and then you're in orthographic view, and you can always just tumble out of it. But that's kind of important. So let's keep moving. I'm going to go ahead and save what I'm doing, because after all the work of bringing this in, uh, I know last time people were like, save your file. Okay, initial import. I'm going to call this, and then I have it. Um, the other thing is that you might want to take a look at the materials and see how they're working. Because it was a GLTF, it should be fine. But let's go to shading and let's look at it now. Look at what Sketchfab does. It does some
Hmm.
weird things. It's using this weird camera ray thing, and then a transparent. Oh, because it had transparency on the
Yeah.
eyeballs, and then it's using emission to make it like fully like unlit. In other words, or fully lit, depending on how you think of it. I like replacing all this. I'm going to actually grab all this junk in the middle and just hit X to delete it. And I'm going to replace that, like we talked about last time. You can watch the video from last week with a background node and just plug it through there. It'll be cheaper and simpler. Now, it doesn't have the transparent eyeball action happening, uh, but I can also fix that by just pulling those out a little bit. And actually, why don't I just do that while I'm here? Um, they're doing some really, look at this interesting, they have like a backer in there
Mm-hmm.
uh, to be white, I guess, so that they could make it transparent. This is like way more complicated than it need to be, but this is real life. This will happen to you. You'll open up a model and be like, "Ugh, what is this?" So anyway,
Yeah, and I mean, it really depends on like what they were originally using it for. Like, you have no idea when you see it on Sketchfab. Like maybe they had the original was animated or rigged with the eyes or something
maybe it
like
was in
that.
a
And
mobile
so,
game or something. I
yeah, who
don't know. Who
knows? So,
knows? So what I do is I try to select like one vertex of the things that I care about, and then I can hit Control L, and that'll select all the linked verts from that thing. Oh, look at that! It's like in half. Ugh. So here's another pro tip. Whenever you bring in models that were converted like this from one format to another, what will often happen is the vertices can be split. Now, it's hard to
mm.
tell in this model if or where that's happening, but you just saw it on the eyeball. So what I'm going to do is select all the verts, just hit A, and then I'm going to do a merge by distance. So any verts that are like right on top of another one will get merged together. So I just type the letter M, and then under this merge option, just choose by distance.
And we should be able to look at the vertex count and see it go down if
It
it's
just
getting
said
it
at the
right. Yeah.
bottom of the screen, removed 442 vertices.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Okay.
We got rid of a bunch of junk that we probably didn't need and will not miss. Uh, but what I'm going to do now is select one of those. It's hard to select these because they're like inside this thing.
Inside. Yeah.
If I go to wireframe mode, it's easier, but then it's hard to see. And so anyway, I'm going to select one of these, Control L, because I merged. Now they just came together. I'm going to do the same on the other one. If I can zoom in there, I'm going Shift. Oh, I can't quite reach it. There we go. And then Control L. And now that I have both of these in edit mode, I'm going to move to a side view, and I'm just going to slide these out uh, maybe about there so that they're like sticking out.
Mhm.
And that'll look virtually the same, and I don't have to worry about the transparency of this thing. The other thing is that these are flipped. The normals of these eyeballs are flipped, so all the faces are pointing inward,
Hmm.
which is how you were able to see these in the first place. But I'm going to get rid of all the unnecessary junk. This, every model's different. You may or may not run into these sorts of things, but I'm going to select these guys and Control L. So that selected all of those, and then I'm going to flip the normals. I just hit Alt N, N is in normal, and choose flip there, and now they face outward. And for those of you that are annoyed by things like why are these extra guys inside here, like these weird shells of meshes, you could go ahead and get rid of those if you want. Um, Unfortunately, because I merged, now it doesn't know the difference between those and the. Well, whatever. Let's just
It's
leave it.
fine.
Who
Yeah.
cares? We're not going to spend all day modeling. Um, and that's pretty good. And I'm going to hit save. And now we have this ready to go. Now, you might go ahead and just start, rigging it if you know what you're doing, whatever. I love not doing extra work that I don't need to do. And so if you want to open up the robot rig that we have on our Blender file that we provide on a GitHub page, which I don't have handy at the moment, but it's under, like if you look up Hubs Avatar Pipelines, I think it's called.
Yep.
That was the name I picked back in the day. Okay, if I open up that, you can get the files for this robot. And the nice thing about this file is it has the skeleton in it, and it's like ready to go.
Yeah, and I would definitely use that versus creating a new one. I mean, the Hubs right now is very particular about the names and scales and orientations of all of that skeleton. So we want to make that more flexible later, where you could map, you can kind of name it whatever you want, and we'll figure it out like what things actually correspond to which bones in Hubs. But right now, you have to have it with the same exact hierarchy, and so it's definitely just way easier to just use this file than to try and recreate it yourself.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I do every time because I did
Yep.
this work a while ago and I don't like redoing it. So uh, if you open up that bot, you'll see it here. I think I have the skeleton hidden here, but I can turn it on, and now it's drawing on top of everything. It's a very simple skeleton compared to maybe like a VR chat or something like that that might use something crazy. We only have like hips, spine, neck, and head, and then the hands floating out here in a sort of a bind pose like that. Um, I'm actually going to end up not using those bones, and I could delete them. I just leave them there in case later I decide I'm going to go back and rig it differently. But there's a bunch of unneeded things in this file, but it's fairly simple. I don't need this lattice. I could kill it. Um, and then as far as the hierarchy goes, you have the avatar root, and then the armature, which is the skeleton, and then that's the actual mesh, this avatar. Now I like leaving this here for a minute while I bring in my crocodile because I want to see how it compares in size, make sure I did it right. So if you ever want to bring a file from somewhere else, from another blend file, it's very, very simple. You can either use link or append. You can't be in edit mode though. I like using append because I actually want to pull it into this file. So I'm going to choose append, and then I'm going to find my crocodile that I made before my initial import file I saved. And when you choose that, it's like, well, what part of the file do you want? Well, I just want the object. There it is. Like you can bring in just a collection, you could bring in just the materials, you could bring in just a skeleton if it had it,
Hmm.
which
Yeah,
is
we're
really
we're not
cool.
seeing the dialogue, but I think
Oh,
I
I'm
can
sorry. Yeah,
imagine
you
what it
don't see it.
I can imagine what it looks like.
So I'm finding the actual object under the object thing, and there it is. Now, well, it's way bigger than I thought. Oh, it's because this avatar is like down on the ground
Uh
um,
huh.
in this file. So let me turn these back on so you can see it. So it's not quite as big as it may seem because this guy will be up, his head will be up here
Hmm.
when he's in his normal state. But you could still decide, like, I don't know.
Yeah, the actual like vertical position of the avatar we basically ignore because we position it based on the head position. So wherever the head is going to be at eye height, or it's actually
Yeah,
between the two eye bones, is where we will position the camera, and that's where your avatar's height is going to be. So it's convenient to kind of just for modeling, things to kind of line that up in Blender as well, just for your own convenience. But we don't actually care where it is.
Yeah, I'm sort of changing my mind now. I'm actually going to scale him down a bit so he matches the size a little better. Even though he'll end up floating off the ground, I don't want him to be so thick that I'm like clipping through walls and stuff. So
Mhm.
I'm going to pull him down a bit. Now his eyes are at a different place than these eyes, and as Dom just said, the camera that you see through when you're in hubs gets automatically put right between the two eye bones. And so, um, if you've ever tried to do this without a skeleton, you may have been like, why is my camera here? Or like, why did it get put in such a weird spot? It's because you didn't have a skeleton and it
Yeah,
didn't
if you
know
don't
where to
have the
put them.
skeleton, we basically treat your entire model as the head. Um, we kind of generate a skeleton for you on the fly, and we just take your entire model, put it as the head, and then center the camera in the center of it. So you're going to be looking out of the chest of this avatar, or
Right. So
um,
the eye bones right now are here and here. So we're going to want to actually move some of the skeleton around to match our model. And that's Blender makes that really easy. I'll show you how to do it. Let me get rid of the bot model at this point. I'm just going to select the old avatar model and just hit X and delete it. And now we can see our guy here. Um, and in order to edit the skeleton, it has to be selectable, which I turned off. You go into edit mode with tab or this drop down here and just start moving things around the way you need to. So like from the side on this guy, uh, we don't do a whole lot of like bending and weird things, but the neck right now is here and the head is here. So I'm actually going to just grab like the neck part and move it up. Make sure snapping isn't on. I'm going to move it up a bit so it's kind of at the base here. And then maybe move the head up a bit. Um, I don't really like how I did that. What did I do? What have I done? Oh, I kind of like moved it in a weird way. This head bone actually doesn't really matter that much. The eyes matter a lot more actually. So let's see if I can grab them. Now these are a little tricky because I'm going to need to like get them evenly in the spot for these eyes. I do it orthographically. So I start with the front view. I grab the middle bone there and I hit G, and then it by default is just moving 2D on this plane. So I'm going to kind of put it where the pupil is.
and Fernando in chat is asking about IK for the arms and that sort of stuff.
Mm,
Yeah, we don't have that right now. There are some libraries in 3JS that do this. We've looked into them very briefly, but it's not something we've implemented yet. I think one of the most promising ones I've seen has been this system that the ExoKit folks are working on, which is pretty cool. Like they have this whole avatar IK system that yeah, I think we'd be really excited to use at some point, at least as an option. I think
yeah,
part of it is like figuring out the expense of like how we do it in a way that doesn't bog everyone down. There's different strategies we can go there and go into that further at some point, but yeah, short answer is like we don't have that right now, but I think we would like to have something like that as an option at least in the future.
for sure. So I got the one in a pretty good spot. I put its pivot point of that bone like kind of at the center of the eyeball because I know
Hmm.
that when the animation plays on these, because there's actually animation on these bones already from the bot. I'm just going to try to repurpose
Yeah,
it.
that's the other advantage of using this instead of recreating your own, skeleton from scratch is that this file also has animations for the kind of eyes
Hand
idling and also the
poses,
hand poses. The hand poses is the big one. Having to redo those are
that's a pain.
a big pain.
Even I hate doing it over again, and I've done it a bunch. So what I do is I just look at the one bone's values now, and I paste them onto the other one. So like now I know that the Y position needs to be that. I paste it from him to him. That wasn't right. Wait.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it's because of these tail values. The way that this works is weird. Um, they get their values. It's kind of hard to explain. I have to kind of just basically paste in these values until they match. Um, and then the Z position of this is, I could type them, but I have a bad working memory, and so I'm just pasting. And then the same, like the Z position of the
Right. You
tail.
have to move all the pieces.
Yeah, I know there's probably Blender experts out there. Oops, who are this isn't right. Who are cringing like, why didn't
Yeah,
you
there's
just?
probably a way to copy the whole
There's like a button to
value somehow.
mirror it,
Yeah,
I think,
I would
and
bet.
I am being kind of lazy. And then really the X position is the only one that you have to paste differently by getting rid of like if it's positive or
Right,
negative.
because this is centered around the origin, you'll be able to just flip the axis there.
Yeah. So I, in retrospect, I probably should have just eyeballed it. Um,
No pun
but
intended.
there we go. Oh yeah, good one. Tom with the dad joke. I like it. That's usually my territory.
I know. Well, you were focused on something, so I
I know. Okay,
had to do
so
it for you.
what this means now is that because I've placed these two eye bones here, when this guy loads and hubs, the camera will get put right here between the eyes, which
Hmm.
is where people will be looking at you. So that's kind of cool. Um, Now the last thing I need to do though is skin this guy to the skeleton, and I'm going to save not over my bot. Let me save as. Let me find the thing. I know you can't see this, so I'm just going to call this rigging one. Um, I have to tell it to, attach to the rig. So what I do
Hmm.
is I select the mesh, I select the bones, and I choose object, parent, and then it's these, or control P will get you here, armature deform, and then you can choose which type you want. I like using the one called with empty groups, and then I manually assign which verts to which bone I want because it's so simple compared to some really complex rigs. And the groups are already there. So if I hit with empty groups, what it'll do is make a group for each bone, and then what I have to do manually is tell it like which verts move with which bone. And it's in this case it's very very simple. Uh, I can select him and I go into edit mode, and then I over here in my object data properties, the little green inverted triangle, there's all the groups. So you'll see there's a group for each bone. And I basically just have to select each one, select verts, and hit assign, and basically say like what moves with what. So if you started like really simply, you could select all of it and just assign it all to like the hips or the spine
Hmm.
or something, and then uh, like if I just hit assign here, now the only bone that really affects this whole rig is the root. Um, and to test it, instead of edit mode on the skeleton, you have to choose pose mode or control tab to get you there. Um, and in pose mode, when you select the bones, they light up in blue. And now you're kind of simulating what it would be like, if this thing
To
actually
rotate them, and yep.
rotated. So yeah, he just moves with the skeleton in full. Um,
Yeah, if you do actually weight the different parts, like that will have an impact in hubs because we do a very simple. I struggle to even call it IK, but like very simple movement. So like when your head rotates, your body will slightly lag behind it. So um, I don't know if people have seen the card avatar you made. That's the reason it happens to kind of twist. Um, is because
I'll do
the
it with this guy because it's really
yeah, yeah, yeah.
simple. So right now
Okay, great.
everything's assigned to hips, and that's fine. Except I do want to do the eyes in a minute, but I'm gonna hit Control Tab again to get out of this mode, get to Object mode. Then go into Edit mode on this guy. Look at him from one of the sides. I'm gonna go into wireframe so that I can select just with a big box, and I'm gonna select like everything from here up for the head. I don't know about
Hmm.
that. I don't know about this guy. I don't want that. Just like all that, and I'm going to assign all these verts to the head. So first I'm going to remove them from hips, and then go to head and hit assign. And now when I go back to the skeleton and go to pose mode and select like the neck bone here, and I rotate it like on the x-axis, look, he's actually skinned.
Hmm.
Not well, but
Yeah, I mean
good
this
enough.
is itself kind of like an art, and so you can spend a lot of time doing this. Well, because rather than skinning 100% to one bone, you tend to like feather
Like
the weights and all that.
gradual, yeah. And
But
you could if you want to get into all that, obviously you can learn more about Blender or whatever app you're using, and Uh, they have weight paint mode where you can
Yeah.
see the influence of each bone and all that stuff.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And you can just like paintbrush it and stuff, which is kind of how I did the card, which I'll show later. I
Hmm.
just used like a gradient, did it in one shot. So that's cool. Um, and then the other thing I'll do is assign the eyes not to the hips or the head, but to the actual eye bones, and they'll move with the head since the head bone moves the eye bones. So uh,
Yeah, I
this
mean,
this is pretty.
that's the reason they're in a hierarchy. I mean, the hierarchy does affect everything downstream, but
Now,
weighting the different pieces separately is going to allow you to
now I'm
hubs to
actually gonna
control
I'm
it
gonna leave the
differently.
white part assigned to the spine or the head. Actually, I want them
Hmm.
to head. So let me Control L those guys and remove them from hips.
All right, because you
Instead,
only want the pupils to move as part of the animation.
yeah, actually I think they were already assigned to the head. But I'm gonna select the one pupil, and this is his right eye. So I'm gonna select. Let's remove it from head and assign it to right eye. And by the way, when you assign, it's based on this weight underneath. This is a slider. So it's 100% or 1 all the way to that bone. And that's how you do gradual. You can like,
Yeah, and you can
set
have
it.
multiple
Hmm.
weights like on a single vertex.
Let's
I
remove
forget how
that one
many you
from
can
there.
have in hubs. I think maybe 4 per vertex or something like that
Something like that. Yeah, 4, I think is the default.
for influences. Yeah.
GLTF will allow that. Left eye will assign to that. And so now, actually, if I were to go to like animation mode, and this is a big mess, let's just go back to here. I'm just going to add a timeline window down here so I can hit play. Um, you'll actually see this animation play on the bones. And the reason the eyes aren't moving with them is because I'm in edit mode. If I get out of edit mode, now you'll see the pupils like move around. That flicker
Hmm.
you see every once in a while was my weird attempt at like doing blinking by just pulling the
Right.
bones back into the eye so you can't see them. If I turn off the bones for a sec, like now you'll see what it'll kind of look like. That's not bad. I think that'll get the
Yeah.
job done um, for this. Now, in a minute, I'm going to talk about how you get the head to move when you talk, or like how you get the mouth to move and stuff. But for now, what I usually do at this point is uh, just do a test export and see how it works out. The one thing is that this crocodile is not uh, in the same collection as everything else. It's not super important. You can see it. There's like grayed out version over here. It recognizes that it's skinned to this stuff that's in this collection, even though it's outside the collection. I just move it into the collection. And you can do that by grabbing it and holding control, I think. There's a control or shift? Shift. And then you can like drag it over top of the collection to get it in there. The other way to do it is to select it, and then while you're out here, just hit M, and that opens up move to collection, and then you pick it. I use that one a lot. So now
Does it
it's
matter? What's the importance of it being in the same collection?
um,
Just
it's not. It's
organization, or
really.
is there like a?
It's mostly organization. Yeah,
Okay,
like
that
if
makes
later
sense.
I want to hide the whole collection, I can do
Yeah.
that and that sort of thing. But this should be ready to go. Now, when I go to export, I well, and this also answers that question a little bit. The way that I do it, because sometimes I have other stuff in the scene, like helpers and
Hmm.
little temp models I was using as guides or something. I just make sure that I only have everything in this collection selected.
Got it. And then you just export selected object.
Exactly. And so I do
Hmm.
that by right clicking on the collection and choosing select objects. And that'll just grab everything in there. And then when I go to do export, and I know you can't see this right now, but when I do this window,
Hmm.
um,
And so now here you haven't rigged the
export.
hands. So if you were to use this model in VR, you actually wouldn't see your hands, and that would be kind of unfortunate if you wanted to use it in VR. But um, it should work on a 2D display. And then because, like we said, we don't have IK. This was asked in chat too. I would like, okay, well, what do you do then? I was talking about it earlier. I mean, you can kind of go a few different ways. You could create some external hands that completely aren't related to this avatar that are just kind of used to represent your hands in the space. Maybe they're cubes or whatever. Or you can cut off the hands at the wrist or something like that, um, and then remove them from the body. Like it really depends on kind of like the artistic thing you want to do. But because you can only have floating hands, you do need to make some adjustments to the model
Right.
in order to do that.
So I'm going to open up hubs and try bringing this avatar in. Now, the way this works is pretty straightforward if you've never done it. You can go up to the little menu up here and choose set name and avatar. Oh, I've already done it. Oh, what a giveaway. Let's see. I go to browse avatars, and in order to make one, we can pretend these aren't here. But you would hit create avatar, and then there's this custom GLB button, and I need to find the one that I just exported. And so I did this croc export test is what I called it, the one I just did. And he comes in. Now, he looks shiny in here, and that's a kind of a bug right now. Dom
Yeah, there's a bug
knows about it.
in the avatar preview stuff. Basically, the avatar preview is just written very hard coded for the bots, and then we've now started to see more and more people create avatars, and so there's a bunch of kind of bugs that still exist in there.
I do kind of like this chrome crocodile, but
it does look pretty cool.
it's kind of sweet, but not won't look so good on mobile like that. But anyway, this you can ignore the shininess right now. That's kind of a bug.
Yeah, that will be addressed
as of this recording. But if I hit save and then I see him pop up here and I click him, I could rename it in the other window, but that's fine. And I hit accept. And now I'm a crocodile, but you can't quite see me. Let me open up a little camera here. Hey, look, it's me. And now you'll see the rigging that we were talking about. As I turn my body, as I turn my head, like you see the rest of the body lags behind a little bit. I know that's
and
kind of
as you look up and down, it doesn't like rotate the whole body or anything. Just the head. The head will.
Had I not
look
skinned it this way, then the whole body would kind of rotate with my camera.
Yeah, if you skin everything to the head, basically then everything would rotate with the head. Or if you didn't skin anything to the head, then as you look around, nothing would move.
Sometimes I do a little recording like this, a little fashion show, just to check my fit.
Yeah, and the frame rate on the preview of the camera is slower too. So like if you take a video, you'll actually go to see it at full.
Yeah,
full
that's why I do the little video. Let me just see it. There,
Yeah.
see, like that looks pretty good. Are the eyes animated? No, they're not. And I'll tell you why. In the last step here, we're coming up on our hour, so I want to kind of get this done. So anyway, that's what it looks like there. Notice when I talk, nothing happens. My head doesn't get bigger. The mouth doesn't move. Nothing like that. And we can totally do all that stuff all with the Hubs Blender exporter stuff.
Yeah, and this was one of the things that made us want to make the Blender exporter, is because in order to add this stuff before, you would have manually had to edit the GLTF file, and that was kind of a pain. So we wanted to make sure you can do this in Blender and save it into the Blender file. That's like the important bit too, is as you add these components, which you're about to do, they get saved as a file.
So there's an animation on this already called idle_eyes that the robot had, and that's what you see when I hit play in here, and it's actually playing the this animation of the eyeballs moving, and I want that to show up in Hubs. And so to do that, it's a very simple step. As long as you have the Blender exporter installed, the Hubs Blender exporter, you can make it play that animation by selecting the avatar. I usually do it on the root of the avatar. And if you go down to the Object Properties tab, the little orange box looking one, and then under this Hub section, you can hit Add Component, and I want the one called Loop Animation. And in Loop Animation, it's very, very simple. All you're doing is telling it what's the name of the animation. And so you just type in, which is a little error prone, I'll admit.
Yeah, I mean it has to be exact, and it's case sensitive, and you can actually put multiple animation names if you want to loop multiple animation names by comma separating them and no spaces. It's like it's a little bit rough right now, but it should get the job done.
But if you just leave it like that. Now, if I had like a tail moving idle animation, or maybe his little fingers move or something, like a little breathing.
Yeah, tail wagging one would be pretty cool. And that's a good point to bring up actually. Like you can totally have extra bones in this. Like Hubs doesn't care. We have seen people create avatars with tails and use those bones to animate it, and that's totally fine. Hubs really only, for the most part, cares about the head and the hip joint right now. The hand, it doesn't actually even care about the hand bones, though. As we're looking into hand tracking, the finger bones are actually probably going to matter. So it's best to keep the same names as we have in here right now.
So that's all I did was add idle eyes, loop animation, and I'm gonna export it again the same way I did before. I'll save over the old one. As long as you make sure animation is turned on over here, or you can't see it. Sorry, in the
Yep.
export options.
It should be on by default, but
Yeah.
you know.
Now the only thing is when I go back over to hubs, when you go to do your avatar again, you can't just overwrite the one you already made. Uh, so what I do is I go to browse avatars, and then I'm like, as you can see, I have a bunch of ones that I probably
Yeah,
need to
this
get rid of.
process is a little bit annoying. I mean, so what you can also do for testing this animation specifically, you could also just drag in the GLTF into hubs just to preview it.
Oh, that's true.
So like as you're iterating over it, you can kind of do that sort of thing. If it's not something that you actually need to be in an avatar to test,
That's actually
which
really, yeah, really helpful to know that.
yeah, I mean the voice feedback stuff obviously is not going to work unless you're in the avatar because it's only checking for voice if you're using it as an avatar. But for things like animation,
Like if I just drag it into this window, then you can
yeah, it should.
actually, it'll show the animation play by
Yeah,
default.
exactly.
There it is. The
Because
little eyes are
it's
doing it.
just an animation component.
So I do this. I probably should have said that before, but I often do this before I even try to make an avatar. I just drag it in here, make sure the shaders look right. Maybe there's something I missed, like some triangle that got deleted or something. You never know.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
everything but the actual like rigging and audio feedback stuff will work just in the GLTF itself. So
so I try to get in the habit of like deleting the one that I already made, and I didn't do that here. But um, let's bring them in again, and then hit save, and then by default it's called my avatar. I keep forgetting to change the name, but I bring it in, and now I hit accept, and now if I look at myself in the camera, I should see the eyes moving, and I do. Um, this is like very difficult. Well, I'll look through my own mouth. Look carefully. See the eyes doing their little thing in there? Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but it's working. The last thing that I want to do is make it so that when I talk, my head gets bigger, kind of like the robots, or maybe
Mhm.
the mouth moves or something. And that's very simple. Um, this one's a little bit different because you actually can specify which bone you want to scale when you talk, and that's actually how the robots work. The head or the neck bone like has a you know component on it. Now the way you put it on a specific bone might
To
be a
flip back to Blender.
yeah. Oh, thank you.
Hmm.
Thank you. The way you do it on a specific bone is you select the skeleton and you go into edit mode and you pick the bone you want. I'm going to put it on this neck bone because I found that worked really well because of where it's pivoting from. And you can see it, the name of the bone up here. And it'll also show the name of the bone um, over here. There's a tab that actually looks like a little bone, a little
Yeah, and it's
cartoon.
really important to make sure you're in the bone properties because if you're in the object properties, you're going to be applying this component to the whole object, and you'll just see the whole object scale.
Which could
Um,
be what you want. Maybe you want the
sure, I mean
whole
that's fine
thing.
too. But if you're trying to put it on a bone, it can be misleading because you have the bone selected in the viewport, and then you go to add the component, but you actually need to be in the bone
So you
properties.
can see I'm under neck right now, and then I add the hubs component again. And in this one, I'm going to add the one called scale audio feedback. And scale audio feedback. By the way, Dom, I really like how you organize these
Oh
in little
yeah.
columns. I
Yeah,
didn't
I
see
noticed last
that
week you were using
the old one.
the older version of the add-on, and I was like, oh, he doesn't have the new menu. But yeah,
And then here you can actually choose what's the minimum and maximum it scales when you talk. You
hmm
may find that it's too subtle based on your model, like if you're a really tiny model or something, or tiny bone in the model or something. The default is 1, which is like not scaling at all, and then 1.5, which is pretty big actually when you talk. And you can test it by going into pose mode and like grabbing the bone and hitting S to scale, and like what would 1.5 be? I'm looking at the top left of my screen. 1.5 would be pretty damn big. Like he's going to get that big.
yeah,
So
that's at maximum audio
at
volume. So
full
like
volume,
you're
but
probably not going to hit that, but
maybe like
um,
1.2, would
Yeah,
be
and it
kind
kind of
of
really
good.
depends on like what you're going for too. Like, I mean, this the reason we have scale audio feedback, honestly, it was just like super easy to implement, and that's kind of what we did with the robots, and then we just kept it, and it kind of it's a little bit charming and it's fun to see the the bots scaling and that sort of stuff.
You can
Um,
also see it from far away, which is kind of nice.
yeah, and it's also important to note you can put this on multiple things. Like it's you can have multiple of these on there, and it doesn't have to be the head. That's kind of what we've done in the past. But you can scale the right foot or whatever when you talk if you want to, or even have a completely detached object that's following you that you talk out of or whatever. It's just this completely generic components that you can use however you like.
So now I'm gonna. I just reloaded it in. Now you'll note that I'm muted in Hubs. My Hubs screen is actually muted, but you'll still see the action happen. Um, Now when I talk, oh there it is. It's subtle. Hello. Sometimes you have to talk loud and you feel stupid doing it. I'm talking really close into my mic. Okay, maybe 1.2 is too small. It's very, very
It
subtle.
could also be that the preview is
Previewing it.
because
Let's
it's
do a little
the
movie.
FPS is lower. You're only going to see parts of it, and
Hey, I'm
so
talking now. Let's test, test, test. One, two, three. I feel
yeah.
stupid.
And the other
Okay,
thing you can do is open another tab, and just watch yourself from another avatar.
that's usually what
That's
I do.
probably the easiest thing to do.
There, so you can see me talking a little bit.
Yeah.
It's pretty subtle though. So yeah, maybe 1.5 was a better number.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's like I said, that's gonna be the full audio range, and so you're usually not going to be hitting
we've discussed
the
maybe
top.
adding a curve or something
Hmm.
that would make that nice. But
Yeah.
so that's one way to do it, and you can do that in addition to the next thing I'm going to show you, which is uh, morphing. You can actually have a morph or a blend shape driven by talking. Um, and it could be anything really. I mean, if I wanted it to, if I wanted him to like, I don't know, have his tail move when you talk, you could do that. Um, the example I gave before. Now I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna do the cooking show
Go
thing
back to
where,
Blender.
yeah, sorry. I'm gonna do this cooking show thing where I load up a file I made yesterday, so I don't have to bore you with
I
me
put this
doing
in the
this.
oven, and here's
And
it's
then
ready.
45 minutes at 350, and it's done. Um, was that fast? I forget what I named it. I think it was uh, what is it called?
And what you did in this file basically is you created a separate morph target um, for the mouth being open. Is that right?
Yeah. So what I did here was I made a blend shape. And I don't really have to explain this because that's Blender stuff. You could look that up.
Hmm.
But I made a shape key called mouth open, and when the value goes from 0 to 1, the mouth does that. So
Yep.
you could do that with a bone, but then it would be hard to drive with the audio because we only do scale and
Yeah, we don't have like a bone rotation audio feedback. We could definitely create one. Like it's these audio components are actually really easy to make. So a bone rotation audio feedback or a bone movement audio feedback is a thing we could do. We can do a color audio feedback. These are all sorts of things we can add, and they're very little code to
so
do
I'll
them. So if people have ideas or want to submit pull requests with different audio feedback components, happy
so
to
I'll
happy to
just
look at
show you the
those.
one I made yesterday when it was done, um, and what it looks like when I talk. So this one is a lot better because it does that. And I kind of like
Yep.
that. I love that there was an inside of the mouth, and so I felt
Yeah, it's
like I
really
really needed to
it's
do
really
that.
cool looking.
Um, Usually when you talk, the lower jaw moves, but I was like, oh, crocodiles.
No, I like
You
that.
think of the
It,
top
it
that's
fits
going
like
up.
well because it also has like those floating eyeballs and all that. It just feels right for that
Yeah,
for that
and actually I
character.
experimented with both. I had the head swell while the mouth open, and that
Hmm.
also worked. It wasn't bad. Uh, and so I'll do. Let me just show you a quick a couple other examples. This one is one you may have seen already. I grabbed this off of Sketchfab, and I love it. Um,
Yeah, this one's really cool.
and so I made the mouth open and close when you talk, and then the other two mouths are just animating with some bones inside them.
Hmm.
So that's a good example of like adding extra bones. And those ones are just always kind of moving around while I talk,
Yep.
and you see them. And then the head also turns and bends
And
and stuff.
in chat, they're asking about like the morph target you had on the head was moving the eyeballs. Does that have any impact on the animation on the bones for the eyes looking around?
No, because the morph happens last, I guess. It has to do with the order of the skinning and
Hmm.
then the morph. So um, it doesn't seem to mess up the eye animation at all. I think it's just because of the order. Um, that's a really good question. But I was pleasantly surprised to see that it did not mess that up.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah, and
this is the one you were talking about before. This card that I made.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
the
this one's really cool.
the mouth and eyes move when I talk, or the mouth moves when I talk. The eyes are idling with the same animation, but because it's skinned from top to bottom, um, let's see if I can. You can see my. Let me get rid of the HUD. There we go. It's hard to see. So you can see the eyes and the mouth moving. It's kind of subtle, but the part.
I like how subtle it is because like you'll be talking like I remember during a meetup you were using this avatar and we were talking for a while and then I noticed it like after a while I was like oh wow like it was actually kind of cool that it was so subtle.
Yeah. So to show this better, I'm actually going to duplicate this tab, and then you
Just make
can.
sure you cancel out of the
So yeah, it'll allow me to be in two at once. And so now I can see my other self. Um, and then what I'll do is drag this out and like put it on one side of my screen. I don't know. I have no idea what you're seeing right now, but
it's only showing one of the windows,
which one
so
are you seeing?
the
The
one on the left probably.
Oh, you're right. You're seeing the one on the left. Oh yeah, you can't really do that. Oh, that's annoying.
Well, I mean both of the avatars are using the card avatar, so it's
I
fine.
know,
I
but then
think if you
whichever one I activate to move, it
I think that'll work
does that
if
work?
you yeah, that's working fine.
Yeah. So like when I look up and down, it does this because of the way it's skinned. And when I
Hmm.
look left and right, you get this nice drifting. Essentially, think of the top as the head and the bottom as the rest of the body. So
Yeah, basically we have the chest and the hips slowly kind of follow behind with a slight delay behind the head, and it'll snap. Like if you rotate quickly, it'll snap. Like it's not going to just like slowly twist around or exorcist on you or anything like that. But it that's like the very basic IK we have in place right now, and that'll probably expand like to have hands and other stuff or
but it was
arms
kind of a nice
later. But
side effect,
yeah,
and I was pleasantly surprised how well this could work. I
and
made the card a little bit bent so that it never looked totally flat. It was like a little bit. Um, it doesn't have too many
um,
verts.
I would really quickly show in Blender how the morph component is set up, just because you
Oh, that's correct.
didn't show it. Yeah.
So in this case, I have the shape key. Let me switch back over to Blender.
Yeah.
I have the shape key set up so you can test it and
Mhm.
go, okay, 0 to 1. And then the way that it works is on the mesh itself. This is where I put the component.
Yeah, it's important to have it on the mesh which the morph target is applying to, or the blend shape.
I added the component called morph audio feedback.
Hmm.
It's already on there. And then you type in the name of the morph of the blend shape. So the blend shape here, it is case sensitive. It matters. So you can.
And we're using the terms morph and blend shape interchangeably. I mean, it really
Thank you.
depends on
Yes.
which software you're using or which engine you're talking about, but they mean the same thing.
So you can change the max value, and what it'll essentially do is what the blend shape thing allows you to do. Like you can set a higher value. If I set that to 2, it'll kind of extrapolate what I was doing,
Yeah,
and then like go farther than I had.
yeah,
So like
you can overdrive it
so you
too,
can actually like
which can have some pretty fun results.
yeah, like if I go to 10, it's going to do that.
Yeah.
Or like although sometimes it's handy if you want it to actually go negative when you're setting things up. Although in this case, no, I don't want that going negative because that'll be like the when I'm quiet value.
Right. It'll
Um,
close to that. Yeah.
yeah, so that's all it is. The mesh itself has the morph audio feedback component on it and the name and a min max set. And when you export, it'll just work back in hubs. And so that's how it's done. That's how everything's set up. We went a little bit over the hour, but not too bad.
Yeah.
I am pleased.
Yeah, and like I said, if anyone has any suggestions or even pull requests for new audio feedback components, like they're really quick to write. They're just, we have this thing that reads the audio feedback, and so you get a number, and then you just do something with that number every frame. And so, you can, the morph audio feedback or the scale audio feedback are good examples. And if you come up with something else you want to do with it, you know, let
Yeah,
us
and
know
that
or
that's how
show us.
like this egg witch worked. When I
Hmm.
talk, the thing moves.
I
It's
think a
not.
UV transform audio feedback would be cool, so that you could do like
Oh
sprite
yeah,
based mouth movements or something like that. And we've also talked about doing not just the volume, but like actually doing,
testing
phoneme
one, two,
detection,
three.
where you detect, oh, like they're saying O or A, and then have the different mouth shapes. That's something you'll see in some other VR avatar things, like in VR chat does this. And that's something we want to look into at some point.
Yeah, I mean even a model like this that I just pulled off Sketchfab, this like robot. I just found a a piece of the model that I thought would look cool when you talk, and so
Hmm.
it's like there's a this little metal thing on the front, kind of moves around. I don't know why
Right.
it stopped like showing my feedback. I think because I have like this second window and it
One of them
whatever.
might be muted also or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. But oh, you can see it there when I talk. It's like I have
Yeah,
some kind of weird
it's really funny.
muzzle on or something. Um, but it's it's all done with a morph. If you move things rigidly like that, they won't look soft. They'll look like rigid parts moving around. So that's about it. I think we have reached the end of our hour and don't want this to go on too long. But hopefully, this answers questions that you may have had or may currently have about setting up avatars and why they're working or not working or how you do the things that you want to do. But yeah, I guess that's it. Dom, I really appreciate you taking the time
Yeah, that was super fun.
to be
And
here with
and
us.
if
And
if anyone makes any cool avatars, there's the show and tell channel in Discord where you can
please,
show them off,
yes,
and I'd love to see them.
I
And
always
if
like.
you make them promotable, we can feature them as well, so that other people will see them in the avatar selector.
Yeah, I always like that. I'm always happy when I show up at our Friday meetup and see new avatars that people have
Yeah,
made. Whether they shared them with the community or not, it's still cool to see them. So, but
yeah,
it's
we've seen
awesome
some
if you
pretty
share
fun
them because
things.
before you know it, you might make something that has like 100 people using it. And
Hmm. And if you make them remixable, people can actually also just retexture them too. So you know how our default bot avatars, you can just upload a new image to replace the texture. That'll work automatically with your own avatars as well. It only works on the first material. It's like a little restrictive, but like if you have a single material, people can upload new textures to overwrite your textures, so they can create a different skins.
my dog barking tells me that it's time to end
Yes.
it. But yeah, thanks again, Dom, and thanks for everybody for watching. And we'll make sure this video is available either both on Twitch and on YouTube if you want to check it out at another time, and review what you learned today. So,
Yeah.
all right,
Awesome.
talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.